what is your brand's North Star? What is your brand's DNA?
Sure.
If you don't know who you are, how is your customer going to know who you are?
Welcome to the Mastering E-commerce Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Eitan Koter, co-CEO of Vimy. In an era of rising acquisition costs and increased competition, this podcast is dedicated to helping you drive sales, engage customers, and build meaningful communities so you can turn passive visitors into active buyers. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss out on future content. Now let's get started with the episode. Welcome back to another episode of Mastering E-commerce Marketing. I'm your host, Eitan Koter. Today we have a fantastic guest, Craig Crawford. Craig is a digital transformation strategist with over 30 years of experience working with global fashion brands. He's the founder of Differently Enabled, a made-to-order clothing brand that's redefining inclusivity in fashion by designing stylish, functional apparel for individuals who's often been overlooked by the industry. Craig's work blends creativity, technology, and purpose, showing how innovation can drive both business growth and social impact. We're going to explore how brands can use digital transformation to stay competitive while making a meaningful difference. Craig, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And what a great introduction. Well said. Thank you very much. I'm flattered and I'm in awe that I'm doing all that.
Yes, it was a quick recap, a reminder for you, right? So
yeah,
that's mainly you. It's not me. So I'm just created a quick summary of your great career and experience. So Craig, maybe we want to start with with what inspired you to launch Differently Enabled. I think in our prep call you talked about COVID, and this is where all things started. So please share with us. It's very, very interesting.
Well, it is where it all started. So back in 2020, February, March timeframe, when the World Health Organization was declaring COVID a pandemic, I contracted COVID. We didn't even have tests for it. And I was told, just stay at home and isolate and you'll be through it. I didn't have the typical symptoms that people had. Mine were very different. I ached all over. I didn't have respiratory. I didn't have loss of taste or smell or any of that. But by day 8, it wasn't any better. And my husband said, we need to call the ambulance. The doctor had said, if you have any shortness of breath, call the ambulance. But I didn't have shortness of breath. Anyway, the paramedics came and said, yes, we're taking you into hospital. Your oxygen content is low. And it turns out my lungs were half full, and I ended up being in a medically induced coma. So I was hospitalized for 48 days. I was in a coma for 21. And when I came out of that coma, I had to learn how to sit up. I had to learn how to walk again. I had to learn everything. They did a lot of things then that they don't do now, like putting people on a ventilator and all of that, but we didn't know. We learned it was respiratory during my recovery, actually after I was out of the coma. And I really didn't know. I'm a firm believer in things happen to you for a reason, and I certainly tried to find what the meaning for this was for me personally. And one of the first things I thought was I left the NHS with no medical bill, and I thought, well, this is look at what the NHS can do in world healthcare. And then the more I thought about it, I thought, well, they tried to crucify a first lady and then later a president of the United States for talking about universal health care. What is my little story going to do to that? I'm not that important. But I reflected upon the fact that my occupational therapist told me the sooner I got into my own clothes, the faster my trajectory for healing would be. And of course, we had no visitors, so I had to asked for clothes to be sent to me, and I did, and then I couldn't get into them. And then the second round of clothes that I asked to be sent to me, I couldn't get out of them in time to toilet. And just as I had wet myself, my occupational therapist came in and said, this is perfectly normal. And I said, it's not normal. And he said, yes, it is. What we've learned is you need a fly, you need an elastic waist, and he started listing requirements for clothing because I couldn't operate the clothing that I was in. And the more I reflected on that, the more I realized that there are a lot of people who have requirements for clothing that the fashion industry ignores. And not only that, but there are a lot of people who have restricted motion or who have atypical body morphology. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, I can fix this. I've had a 30-year career, still ongoing in fashion. I know technology. I helped pioneer and invent a lot of the technology that we use today in fashion. And I know a lot of design people. I know a lot of people in supply chain and customer and retail. And why is this group excluded? And so by December of 2020, we had formed the company. And we did our first workshops in January with universities in 2021 here in Europe. And then we have just been on a research and development learning curve and ever since. So that's how it started. It started from me being temporarily disabled and realizing that fashion is important. I always knew that. But, when you get up in the morning and you can choose what you want to wear based on your day, you're confident about what you go out and do. And if you are only putting clothing on to cover yourself that others have selected for you, that if you're lucky, there's a dressmaker or seamstress or a tailor in the family or nearby who maybe can tailor those ill-fitted clothes for you, well, then you've got something makeshift. But you should have what you want. You should be able to express yourself. You should be able to, if you want to feel sexy, you should feel sexy. If you want to feel professional and ready for a meeting, if you want to feel ready for a sport activity, you want to feel ready to go to the club, all of these things are different types of clothing, and you should have a choice. And the industry just doesn't cater to that. When it does, it is adaptive wear, and it's more about making clothing accessible for medical needs, but not fashion.
Fashion. Okay.
And that's what we do. We do fashion for people who are excluded.
Exactly. So obviously there is some kind of a balance between fashion, style, right? Functionality that works well, that adapting to the inclusive customer. But I would like to ask you to share with us exactly what you focus on in the company in terms of these type of innovations, because I know you're innovating a lot and you're using a lot of technologies and ideas. Love to learn more about the path that you see for implementing fashion in this inclusive market.
Well, if you think for a moment about fashion brands, every fashion brand has its own unique look, right? That's what a fashion label is about. If I go back to the beginning of my career at the Gap, or back in the late 80s and the early 90s, Gap was about the reverse of conspicuous consumption. The 80s was about very flashy, and the Gap was about the portraits of style, the black and white t-shirt, the jeans, a pair of chinos. I don't need all of that. I need this and I can be me. I moved to the American company Liz Claiborne after I was at Gap, and Liz Claiborne was a woman who went to work in the 70s, and she created clothing for women to feel professional at work. At that time, they could either dress very feminine like Laura Ashley or wear something that looked like a man's power suit. So it was career wear, right? And Claiborne acquired brands while I was there. So, Juicy Couture, Laundry by Shelley Siegel, DKNY. There were 40 brands under the Liz Claiborne umbrella when I left, but each of them had its own unique look, its own unique style, its own DNA. And as consumers, we shop across multiple brands, right? So a differently enabled, we are not interested in creating what is the differently enabled look. We are interested in understanding how you want to present yourself. And then we design for you, and we design with you. So we get a lot of customer information. We're I hate using the word customer-centric because it's so overused, but we really are. We need to understand how you want to express yourself, what colors you like, but also what functional requirements you have. If you have difficulty with zippers, then we're not going to put zippers in the clothing, right? So if you have difficulty with putting your hands over your head, then we need to come up with other ways for you to be able to get in and out of your garment. So you co-create with us. It kind of goes back to what the United Nations mantra is, and that is nothing for us without us. So we don't do anything for people living with disability that they aren't participating in. And that's quite unique. We use technology to shorten the lead time. We use technology to continuously reduce the price. Right now, we are still in the luxury market, and we are working through economies of scale to to be able to reduce prices, because many people living with disability are on budget or fixed income, or they lose their benefit. But I think the thing that's most interesting is that there's so many different ways now that we can apply technology and algorithms, machine learning, and even artificial intelligence. And I hate to use those as sort of throwing out technology terms, but we're looking at things and trialing things that are very relevant to our customer base. The vision is to be able to use a smartphone to extract your measurements. And the reason why we want to use a smartphone is because almost everyone has one. We are playing with and piloting and using body scanners. But have to go to the body scanner, and the body scanner doesn't recognize you if you're in a wheelchair. There's a challenge around that, right? So how do we get around those things, and what do we do? But taking your measurements from an image, from a phone, from an app on a phone, and then pushing those through an algorithm to create a pattern. And that pattern is based on your fit preferences, and your body morphology. And then from that, manufacture on demand. And very, very few companies manufacture on demand. And when they do, they tend to mass manufacture the same item, and they manufacture it in different size ranges based on grade rules. And we don't do that. We do them based on your measurements. We don't tell you you're a size medium or large. You are you, and here's what fits you.
Yeah, it's kind of a done for you, right? Made to order process.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So I'm sure you had a lot of challenges, right, during this journey, and probably a lot of, happy moments or inspiring moments. Can you share those too with us? A few examples.
That's a great question. There's been a lot of challenges, and a lot of wonderful moments. I say, don't ever start a fashion brand because God looks down and says, someone else to throw lightning bolts at. While there are technology challenges, those are the sorts of things that we can deal with. Having a client's water main break in their home so that we can't do a measurement session or a fit session. Having FedEx lose a pattern or packages. I mean, you honestly can't make up some of the things that happen along the way. And everyone, whether you are in, doesn't matter what type of fashion company you're in, anyone listening who works in fashion knows that this is the truth. It's just the craziest things happen in this industry, and you can't help but laugh and go, oh my gosh, well, okay, how are we going to get around this? I'm not kidding you. We even had a courier's car breakdown. He was trying to get patterns from one place to another to meet a deadline. And I was on a boat going from New Jersey to Manhattan when I had someone in London calling and saying, the driver's not moving. And actually, it wasn't that the car broke down. He was in a hit and run accident. He was actually fine, but the car would move. And it was the a GPS satellite tracking that showed he wasn't moving, that then, my team called and found out what had happened, and they had to send another courier. You just can't make these things. And he's fine. So the war stories go on and on. But I think, the bigger things that we can affect, technology is not interoperable. It's not plug and play. We're still living in a world where technology providers want to own the entire end-to-end process. I thought that phase was gone, and it's not. And we're seeing more technology companies acquire others, and they think they're going to make it end-to-end and charge the fashion industry a lot of money because they own end-to-end. And it doesn't work that way. It's very naive thinking, and they're not successful. And we're going through a second wave of that. I've been doing this long enough to see that. The cool thing is the technology providers are very keen to work with us because they understand that if they get this right for us, it is something that they can use throughout the industry. And I am very, very pleased with the technology partners that we are working with, and very happy with the strides that we're making, sometimes baby steps and sometimes giant steps. But nothing is 100% accurate. And so the technology fundamentally is biased against asymmetry. And I've spoken about this before in trade shows and conferences. I say programmers are inherently lazy, split the body in half, give me half and now mirror it. Well, if you don't have a limb, that doesn't work. We aren't symmetrical, by the way. And disability shows that even more. If you're unusually proportioned, if you are, for example, I use this quite often, someone living with Down syndrome has a wider midsection, shorter shoulders, wider neck, shorter arms. Other 3D systems say that these proportions are incorrect and try to balance them. Someone living with dwarfism, no, that's wrong. They can't be a men's chest 40 and only be 3 feet tall. That's wrong. And so we have to take measurements through different applications, not just using one, but through several to even get an avatar, or through several to get a texture right in a fabric, or a pattern piece generated correctly in existing technology. Now, the bleeding edge stuff that we're working with, where we're learning from the body shape and then creating, and we're doing this in conjunction with the university here in University of Manchester. We can create a pair of trousers, a basic shirt, a raglan sleeve sweatshirt, and a simple dress through an algorithm, and that does not care about symmetry. It does not care about atypical body morphology.
Mm-hmm.
So we're using artificial intelligence to render things. So when we co-create with our consumers, we can show them things rather than going through the very difficult project of making things in 3D, which is biased against disability. We can show it through artificial intelligence, get a reasonable feedback. What do you like? Do you like this color? Do you like this fabric? Do you like the way this is draping and hanging? And then move into 3D to go and perfect the pattern if it's something that we can't push through the algorithm. But we are working to improve that algorithm so that we can create a whole wardrobe for you. And that's the exciting stuff.
Yeah.
So those are challenges, but I'm a very curious person and I like to learn. And so when something doesn't work, I roll my eyes audibly and then we laugh about it. And it's like, okay, well, how do we fix it? It's not throw your hands up in the air. It's like, all right, hang on, this can be fixed. This is man-made. It can therefore be man-altered. It can be man-fixed or woman-fixed. It can be fixed. But the greatest moments are delivering the clothes. I mean, to see someone put a dress on that they've never had a dress that fit before, to see someone put on a motorcycle jacket who's always wanted one, and to see them post in social media, but to be there in that moment and to see the joy and the jumping up and down and the, and the notes and the messages afterwards. I mean, one of our brand champions, we were just getting ready to release all of the filming and stuff that we've been doing around her dress, and she's part of the Shaw Trust Power 100. And she said, my husband says he's never seen me so confident. The only time I've ever had anything that fit me was my wedding dress. And now it's, and she lobbies Parliament, right? She lobbies Parliament. So we're very excited. I guess you get the exclusive that we're going to be dressing her for a lot of her government meetings now. And so it's so wonderful to see the joy on someone's face. And that's why designers do what we do, because we want people to feel special. We want that confidence. We want to see that excitement. We want, when I worked at Burberry, you put on a Burberry jacket, you stood a little taller. The armholes were cut higher. It was, it had some feel to it from military and uniform. And, you just did. The clothing did that with you. And we were speaking with someone who is in the military, whose career has been in the military. And he said, I get it. Putting on different uniforms, you feel differently. You behave differently. So it's something you're ready for work. You're ready, confident to go in that meeting and make it happen. Likewise, our clients going out on date night. Well, she wants to feel sexy, and now a dress that makes her feel that way, that fits her, and she's confident. And having clients, who are neurodiverse, and one example with autism, and coming back and saying, I've never felt better. I feel like I can go into a room and be myself suddenly, and I didn't really know what that was like before. Those are the moments that just make every bit of the hard worth it, because we're making people happy. We're bringing George and they're feeling confident, and that's what we want.
Yeah,
That's what.
the influence on people's life and confidence and happiness is really inspiring, really interesting. Yeah. Oh, where you are right now in the life cycle of the company?
Well, we're focusing on our core collection now, bring prices down. I'm very excited to inform your listeners that we have what's called advanced assurance from the HMRC here in the UK for the SEIS and EIS investment. The word in the UK is scheme. I don't like using that word because in America, a money scheme is not a good thing. It is investment opportunity that provides tax benefits to UK individuals who invest in us.
Yeah.
And we are approved for both plans. So we are now talking with investors. And in a perfect world, I will be doing it differently, enabled full time, and my consultancy will become a side hustle.
Mm-hmm.
Up until now, all of the team have had other full-time positions, and Differently Enable has been a side hustle. So we are getting ready to take the plunge to be full-time with this, and we are so excited. I was working with the marketing team this morning, and I said, I can't wait until we all work on this full-time, and we're doing this and getting up every day, and at some point going into an office. We do have meeting areas that we get together periodically and do things, and we were really fortunate to be part of a BBC podcast, and we got together and worked in a workspace around that. And when you're all together doing things towards a common goal, it's just so wonderful, the synergies that happen when you're in a room in the same location, and it is your full focus. And so I'm very excited that that's what's coming this year.
Right. Exciting times, definitely a real milestone that's coming over. So
yes,
great stuff. So, Craig, what do you see are some of the common mistakes companies make when trying to implement inclusivity process or trying to cater this type of market segment?
Well, I think for starters, they forget who they are. I mean, this is my consultancy. My number one thing is, what is your brand's North Star? What is your brand's DNA? And there are a lot of companies that I would say are out of touch with that. And then they want to embark on digital transformation. But if you don't know who you are, how is your customer going to know who you are? And so I think just saying we're going to be inclusive, we are going to create adaptive wear is not enough. Now, if you know what your brand is and you understand that, great. Now, how are you going to approach consumers who have atypical body morphology or disability or restricted motion or range of motion? And in some instances, it can be clothing hacks that are done to make the clothing adapted to the audience. But I think they missed the boat because they focus more on, and there's a place for this, don't get me wrong, but focusing on the medical requirements. Here are easy access for treatment, easy access for medical device or the adjustment of medical devices. And those things are important. We do that too. But where is the fabric quality? Where is the style? How is this making someone feel? And I'm very, very excited that, here in the UK, Primark has done, adaptive wear. And that is high street, that's low end. And that is really important for everyone to have visibility to this. But do they really understand their consumer? Don't get me wrong, the designer I know, and she's great. And she does understand her consumer because she has her own line and she is that consumer. But it's one thing to have it designed by, and it's another thing to have it manufactured through. And I hope it is successful, because we all need to understand that, 1 in 5 people are affected by disability. And as a result of that, they're part of society and they should be seen and they should be embraced. And, as our clients say to us, and it is a recurring statement, you have brown hair, I have blonde hair. You wear trainers, I wear flip-flops. I'm in a chair, you walk. It's just another aspect of me. It's not me. It doesn't define me. It's just another trait. And society hasn't really understood that yet. So I think not only understanding who you are as a brand, but then who that customer is It's not enough to just say you're doing it. It's not enough to do it. It's not enough to do it as a side hustle, which is what I've been doing, and we need to know who the consumer is. And I think a lot of brands fail to do that research and fail to understand that. And I'm going to have some hate mail now because of me saying that. But I would argue a lot of brands don't know who their consumers are anyway. They think they do. Even brands that I have worked for thought we knew who the consumer was, but really it wasn't. And I won't name names, but I can name brands that think that their consumer is this particular muscle-bound motorcycle rebel, blah, blah, blah. But really, who was buying that high-end brand? The electrician and the plumber and the working class person who recognize that it's a status symbol and can wear that out to show I'm making enough money to buy that. And that's not who the product is designed for. So you really do need to understand your customer and what they want. I think our advantage is because we want you to express who you are. We aren't slave to a brand image, right? I don't care about our image. Yes, I do in terms of our authenticity and our reputation. But if grandma wants Hell's Angels and grandpa wants Hello Kitty, that's fine. If a young lady wants to dress like, I don't know, Johnny Depp, and a young man wants to dress like Barbie, and I'm being stereotypical here and picking extremes, I don't care. We want you to express yourself, and we want you to look the best you can. So that Barbie outfit better fit, that Hello Kitty outfit better fit, and it should be in fabric that you want. It should make you feel good. It should be the colors that you want. And you should be able to get in and out of it as easy as you can. And that's a lot. So yeah, I think we're in an industry that we're at a period in the industry now that we've been driven by commerce. We've been driven by price. And how have we done that? We've moved manufacturing to the cheapest labor source in the world. And that's a house of cards. And every time we move to one area, and yes, we elevate, the industry can elevate the standard of living by providing more money. But when that happens, then also the standard of living goes up and their children become doctors and dentists and don't want to work in a factory. And so as we all level up, then that house of cards is going to collapse because we aren't going to have cheap labor anymore. Mm-hmm. The Industrial Revolution worked to mass manufacture fabric, and that's caused us problems too. I know brands that buy fabric based on quantity when they have they do not intend to actually use all that fabric. But they can say it cost me 50p a yard because I bought 10,000 meters of it, and that meter is just sitting in a warehouse somewhere under a different line item. Yeah. Right. So therefore, they think they are hitting the price, and with cost of goods sold, they think they're hitting the price. They think they're hitting the margin because they've got the fabric down to a cheap price. Meanwhile, now you've got something on inventory that's going to get thrown away later, and it's going to cost money to be stored. And so it's a false economy, and our sizing system doesn't work. A man's medium in Calvin Klein is not a medium at Burberry, is not a medium at Hugo Boss, right? It's inconsistent. And so we're making what customers don't necessarily want. We're not listening to them. We're not paying attention to the evolution of the body and the size. And we're stuck. And we're stuck with all this stuff that's a waste, and we're destroying it. I like to say, and I probably shouldn't say this, but I like to say, differently enabled is the Trojan horse for the fashion industry. We have a model that will work for everyone.
Yeah, not just for that specific market segment, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Craig, about your consulting services, and I know you've been doing digital transformation for like 3 decades. You call yourself the right brand of IT, right? So tell us what you mean by that and what type of services you provide.
Well, I'm a creative person. I grew up, I started my career as a designer. Well, I actually started my career as a model. If you can look at this, I say to students all the time, here I am when I started, here's what the fashion industry does. So I've been in the creative aspect. I was a stylist as well, and I've worked in retail and done merchandising and visual merchandising. And so I've done lots of things in the creative space, writing as well, and designing. And so I approach things creatively, but I got that nickname at Burberry because Angela, the former CEO, is who brought me into Burberry. I had worked with her at Les Claiborne, and she used to say that Burberry is a right brain, left brain organization. She's the left brain, Christopher was the right brain, and I was the creative person in IT. Which Angela, by the way, used to say I was the only person in IT who understood the brand, and that's because I understood the process. I've done it. I know what's needed. I know what questions to ask, and I know some. I don't have to ask some questions. You just get out, confirmation on your assumptions to make sure that those things are right. But you don't have to ask the questions. And I don't know how many of your listeners know this, but traditional IT, you learn methodology and you learn how to ask questions, and then you learn how to get from those questions requirements, and then you create, either a project scope and objective, or you create a statement of work, or you create a requirements document, and then you ask your user community to sign off and agree, and then you go off and you build it. And forget the Scrum versus waterfall methodology. One takes longer, one's quicker, one's iterative. Still, at the end of the day, you're trained tech skills. You're not trained the industry. So at Liz Claiborne, most of the IT people had come from pharmaceuticals. I headed up a team that came from design, and we were called Design Technologies. And IT didn't understand what we did at all. At Burberry, they understood what we did, right? But I came from the industry. At Burberry, they had come from the drinks industry. So there were challenges around, well, hang on a minute, the ERP system is filling up. Well, yes, because you're used to doing how many new flavored vodkas a year in the drink industry versus 8,000 SKUs every 8 weeks. In fact, but they didn't necessarily know to say, and what will the quantity of SKUs be? And also, I literally had requests from IT saying, and this will make anyone laugh who comes from design. Christopher Bailey at the time was our chief creative officer. Craig, you just need to tell Christopher he needs to make his mind up earlier because we need this time to put SKUs through SAP. And I burst out laughing and said, no, that's not going to happen because deadline sharpens the mind, and the night before the runway show is when things will be finalized. And yes, we can talk about trying to do some things earlier, but we're not going to make up our minds faster because the ERP system needs us to. It doesn't work like so. You can do that, though, if you're formulating pharmaceuticals. You can do that if you're formulating tires. You can do that, but it's very different in this industry. And we're also emotional about what we do because we want people to feel that emotion when they buy, right? We everything I've talked about with Enable is about creating emotion, feeling, and confidence. And so we do that, and we want people to feel that way. And therefore, we follow some data. And yes, we look more and more, we're looking at data to help us be able to say, yes, we are following our gut and we're right. And the data shows us that. So we're even more confident in making our business decisions around product that we create and offer. But it's very different than creating technology, which has a certain pathway and a certain rigor to test and to train and to roll out and to get feedback and to keep going. And I used to laugh at Burberry because I sat between both. And I used to say, you do the same thing. You're both creating something, but it's just very different process. It's sort of like whirling dervishes and tornadoes over here in the creative space, and over here in the technology development space, it's very linear and it's very gated and it's very one step after the other, but they're still at the end creating the same thing. So that's where I got the nickname Right Brain. So it doesn't mean I'm correct. It means I'm creative.
Nice.
And that is usually very linear.
And it's so important today, right? The creativity aspect of things, because all the regular processes and day-to-day job, are going to probably be replaced by machines and and whatever, servers and software, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And I think it's that creative thinking and critical thinking and problem solving and looking at things from a different perspective that's super helpful when you have a team of people that are balanced across all of that, which we did in the IT department at Burberry. We had people that were extremely linear, and then we had folks like me who were very, very creative and thought outside of it, and everyone working together. Then you come up with the best ideas and the best solutions, and it's exciting. So that's kind of what's going on. And I think the world needs more of that rather than following super creative or super linear. We learn from each other, and
that teamwork is the real thing, right? So that's That's the way to succeed, having both the creativity side, but also the execution side. So it's very, very important on both ends.
Yeah.
Greg, so if people want to just reach out to you to maybe invest or support differently enabled, or reach out to you for any issues, what's the best way to find you? Where is the best way to find you?
Well, certainly you can go on to Differently Enable and email us there and sign up for our mailing list and that sort of thing. I'm also on LinkedIn, so certainly connect with me on LinkedIn. My contact information is there. I'm more than happy to have people, email me, or just reach out there. And I also have, Crawford IT has its own website as well. So it's differentlyenabled.com or crawfordit.com. And both of those have, forms you can fill in, or you can just certainly reach out via LinkedIn.
Amazing, Craig. So this was very, very inspiring. I wish you great success and all the best in, whatever you build. So thank you for being here and share your story with us. And I wish you all the best.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. And let's do this again. Once we've been around the block or so, we can tell you about what else we've done.
Yes, I will look forward to it. Of course.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the end of this episode. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe so you won't miss any of our future content. And if you could share this with just one person, it would make all the difference. Are you looking to accelerate your sales with the power of shoppable video? Explore Vimy, the video commerce platform that includes live shopping, shoppable video, and social commerce capabilities. Visit Vimy at www.vimy.net, that's VIMMI.net, where you can start with a free for life package. We appreciate your support and look forward for bringing you more valuable insights in our next episode.